In this video, we will quickly review the 7 principles of partnership and trust. We've already been on a long road to understanding family characteristics and functions, the historical roles of families, and policies that impact family professional partnerships, and much more. This nuts and bolts content is the next step to becoming the teacher you want to be. Partnership refers to a relationship in which families and professionals agree to build on each other's expertise and resources for the purposes of making and implementing decisions that will directly benefit students and indirectly benefit the family and professionals. For me, as a professional that supports families, partnership is a focused effort to ensure that a child is receiving the services and supports necessary to become independent and have a fulfilled life. It is both child and family focused. In order to build a true partnership, there are 7 principles that should be adhered to in the process. But what is a principle? A principle is a comprehensive and fundamental law, doctrine, or assumption. The 7 principles we will be discussing are considered doctrines, a body of principles in a branch of knowledge. In this case, the knowledge is best practice for partnerships. The 7 principles of partnership we will define are communication, professional competence, respect, commitment, equality, advocacy, and trust. Your textbook illustrates the principles as an arch. Within this arch, trust is the keystone. What does that mean? That means that trust is the thing that locks them all together. Let's examine each of these principles one at a time and how you can build them, put them into practice, and at times repair them. In today's world, it is important to practice communication skills. Much of today's communication is done through voicemail, email, text messaging, and social networks such as Facebook and Twitter. These modes of communication have not allowed us to continuously practice the face-to-face skills that are necessary to build trusting relationships with families. There are 5 necessary communication practices that you should be comfortable with as a teacher. Some of these skills require practice and thought. Be friendly. Just because you are a professional does not mean you cannot be friendly. Don't worry that your professionalism will be compromised by providing this personal touch to your interactions. Next, you should listen carefully. This can be very difficult to do because as professionals, we're used to providing our professional advice. When you listen empathetically and try to understand the parent's point of view. Be clear. Avoid technical jargon at all costs unless the parent you're speaking to is using it. This will require you to listen to determine the level of terms you will use. Be honest. If you don't know an answer to a parent's question, tell them that you do not know, but that you'll look into it and get back with them. Also, be direct when you're being honest. If you're having a problem, don't sugarcoat it. If the child is having a problem at school, the parents will probably already know it because they will typically display this behavior also in the home environment. Lastly, provide and coordinate information for the families you're supporting. Creating a list of resources for the family and directing the family to those resources that will be most helpful to them is one of the best things you can do. This can be overwhelming for a family, particularly when the child has just received a diagnosis. Being professional, qualified, and competent means that you strive to provide an appropriate education, you remain a lifelong learner, and you set high expectations. So how do you provide an appropriate education? You make sure that each child has equal access to materials, individualization, and an equal opportunity to learn. You as a teacher also have to have the knowledge and skills to individualize instruction to meet the needs of your students. This brings us to the next area of professional competence, becoming a lifelong learner. There are formal requirements in place that require teachers to take courses and to renew their teaching licensure. There are also informal ways you can become a lifelong learner. One way is to connect with a mentor or to become a mentor yourself. This opportunity forces you to reflect on your teaching as well as the teaching of others. Another way is to seek constructive feedback for pointers on how you can improve your teaching and your partnerships from professionals and the families you've formed relationships with. The last area of professional competence you should work on is setting high expectations for the students you're teaching. Oftentimes, the child's diagnosis sets the expectations for the child, and this is not okay. One child with Down syndrome looks entirely different from another child with the same diagnosis. Never set expectations or have predetermined thoughts about how far a child will go or what they will achieve. A respectful person honors cultural diversity, affirms child and family strengths, and treats families and students with dignity. When honoring cultural diversity and thinking about this concept, you may want to go back and review Chapter 1. Remember that your family characteristics and cultural background may be entirely different than the students you are serving. Neither culture is right. Understanding cultural difference is right. When developing partnerships, be aware of the differences you may encounter. For instance, you may want all of your families to have equal rights and responsibilities. While I think that's awesome, in some cultures, they may prefer that the professionals make the decisions. If you are going to be making big decisions on behalf of the family, make sure you are well aware of the family's priorities and preferences. Parents often report that when they go to meetings or meet with teachers, the meetings always focus on what their child can't do. This emphasis on the negative can make parents defensive right from the start. But focusing on the child's strengths make the parents more open to developing a relationship with you. I try to explain it this way. What's something you're terrible at? Math? Writing? Public speaking? Okay, now I'm going to have you do that activity that you're terrible at all day long. You might become frustrated. This is how some of our special ed students feel, so they exhibit poor behavior. Now think of that family of the special ed student. If all you're going to hear about is what the child did wrong when they're frustrated. After a while, would you just tune it out? Would you want to have a relationship with them? Lastly, respect is about treating students and families with dignity. Treating them as worthy shows them that you respect them as a person and as your student. As a teacher, you may make a few mistakes when supporting children and their families. Respect also means that you will correct them, learn from them, and avoid them in the future. Commitment, the fourth principle of partnership, occurs when you as a teacher realize that your relationship with your students and families is more than just a teaching obligation. It's something you want to do because you know it will benefit all parties involved. To demonstrate commitment, you must be sensitive to emotional needs, be available and accessible, foster empowerment, and provide options. Commitment is about going above and beyond. As we have learned over the course of the semester, children with disabilities bring joys, challenges, and additional responsibilities. The additional responsibilities may take an emotional toll on the family at one time or another. Make sure to be a good listener during these times and do not judge their performance as a parent. As a teacher, I used to get upset when a family would not review information or respond to notes that were sent home in the take-home folder. If it went on for a week or more, my first instinct was to think that maybe the parent didn't care about their child's education. I really had to stop and consider that this family might just be busy, tired, or stressed out. Parents' daily routines with children with disabilities are often very busy. Daily care can result in exhaustion and stress for everyone. Checking school communication may not be as big of a priority as just getting through their daily routines. As a teacher, in order to meet with some families, you may need to schedule appointments and meetings outside of the school day and sometimes outside the school. Being available and accessible on their schedule can eliminate problems in the future. Equality refers to conditions in which families and professionals feel that each of them has roughly equal power to influence a child's education. This is achieved through shared power, fostering family empowerment, and providing options for families. The concept of equality is backed by legislation. IDEA specifically provides for parents to be considered as equal members of the child education team. I think this has been a hard transition for teachers and families because of the historical roles of families and teachers. These hierarchies still exist in some schools with some teachers. This is known as a power-over relationship, a relationship where there is decision-making control over the family. That is not a relationship based on equality. However, a power-shared relationship is what you want to strive for. In a power-shared relationship, the team works together all of their time, sharing their time, talents, and resources. Fostering empowerment and providing options are two other ways to create a condition of equality. Make sure you read about how to foster empowerment and provide options to your families in the textbook. Advocacy is action-oriented. It focuses on preventing problems. However, if a problem arises, an advocate identifies the nature of the problem, the barriers to solving it, and the resources available for solving it. As a teacher, you should be parent and family focused, but you also have to work within your school. Being an advocate can be a delicate balance, but it's certainly doable. One way to be a good advocate for the student and their family is to get the whole team on board. This is known as broadening alliances. I like how your book puts it. There is safety in numbers. Creating win-win solutions to problems is the best way to approach an advocacy situation. Can you identify how everyone can win? A parent talked to me one time and said when the teacher sent home a note. The note stated, "Bobby will not be allowed to keep a case of water at school in the closet because that would not be fair to the other students." The note also said that Bobby would not be allowed to eat a snack at school because in junior high, students don't eat snacks. Of course, the mother became upset. I asked her, "Well, which one are you okay letting the teacher have?" She thought about it and she said, "Okay, I can send a water bottle in each day that he could refill." I said, "Perfect. Write the teacher and tell her that, but let her know that the snack is still very important for Bobby because the doctor is worried about his caloric intake." That's actually a true story. Bobby is a young man with autism and he has a very restricted diet. He needs to eat regularly. Now, that's not a true win-win situation as described in your book, but certainly the people who were having an issue both walked away from the problem with a win. Trust is the keystone in the arch that illustrates the partnership principles. Without trust, even if you have the other components, you won't have a true partnership. Trust means that you are reliable, people can count on you to use good judgment, you maintain confidentiality, and you have trust in yourself. Basically, if you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't make decisions to get something off your plate. Use sound judgment and think before you act. Always keep information in confidence. The phrase, "the teacher's lounge," is pretty derogatory. Don't share information about families or students in that environment. The last component of trust is trusting yourself. Reflect frequently, but don't second-guess yourself. Now I want you to take some time to reflect on the principles that come naturally to you. What principles are you good at? What do you still need to work on? I want you to set a goal for yourself and select a principle and develop a plan for working on it.